Hi, I'm Rick Jones, head baseball coach at Tulane University. I've coached at every level, from the junior high, high school, junior college, small college, Division I, and USA national team. One thing that I think is certainly a universal trait among all great pitchers is the ability to be mechanically sound. What I'd like to do in this video is give you an understanding of what we feel like are the strengths of a good delivery and the basis for which we think that you can build and become a better pitcher. As coaches, be able to help our pitchers from a mechanical standpoint, and as pitchers, some things that can assist you and maybe give you some immediate feedback where you are as far as mechanics are concerned. So what we'd like to do is break this down into two areas, our lower body and upper body mechanics, and then combine the two and show you some drills that we've picked up over the years that, again, can help you repeat over and over what we think are proper mechanics, give you a chance to be a better pitcher. It really doesn't matter what kind of grip you've got on your fastball, curveball, or change. If your mechanics are not sound, it's really going to be tough for you to make the adjustment and be able to improve as a pitcher. So let's get started by talking about lower body mechanics. On the mound with me today is Coach Jim Schlossnagle, assistant baseball coach here at Tulane, who also helps me with our pitchers. Coach Schlossnagle is going to be demonstrating mechanics, again, starting with the lower half. First thing we want to think about is where we're going to be on the pitcher's rubber. Now, the majority of conventional pitchers that you're going to find, especially at the higher levels, right-handers would be on the right one-third side of the rubber, and left-handers on the left one-third side of the rubber. There are a lot of reasons why you'd want to have them on that side of the rubber. I mean, they're going to have the majority of the plate for the breaking ball. Their arm slot's not going to be in the middle of the plate. They're going to hide the ball better, certainly going to hide the ball better, but the most important reason would be if we took and turned our heel into the balance point and then drew a line from that heel straight down the rubber, straight down the mound, we would want our stride foot to hit on or just short of that line. Now, if I moved on the opposite side of the rubber, which we would call the incorrect side of the rubber, and tried to do the same thing, for me, then I'm going to have to step almost around the corner, across my body, as some coaches like to say, to be able to make that movement. And again, that would be real tough for me. I'm cutting myself off. It's going to be real tough for me to get my hips through. So what I want to do again is be on the right one-third side if I'm a right-hander, left if I'm a left-hander, and looking at that second line of our 5-line drill as being the line that we would want to hit on or just short of. One thing we've got to be careful of as coaches is watching a pitcher who may line up on that side of the rubber, but when they start with their rocker step, slide their foot all the way across, and as you can see, they're not really on the correct side of the pitching rubber at the point of the time when they need to be, at the balance point and delivery. So again, keep an eye out for those guys who have a tendency to slide their foot across the rubber. Okay, here we are. I've got my front set of spikes in front of the rubber, back set on top of the rubber, and I'm balanced here. Now, you know, some pitchers are a little bit wider than others. You can see Coach Schloss, though, he started out with his feet just a little bit narrower than shoulder width. He doesn't have the weight on his heels, and he's in a position right there where he can make the delivery. We're ready for the rocker step. Now, what is the rocker step? It's a pre-movement in the opposite direction that allows us to build some momentum. But that rocker step also has got to be something that facilitates the balance point, that enables us to get to the balance point, that doesn't put us in a position where we're off balance. So, from our standpoint, whether the rocker step is down the side of the rubber, or straight back, or at a 45-degree angle, somewhere in that area, all we want to do is take the weight off the front foot so we can pivot that front foot and put it parallel to the rubber. We don't want to step too far back that we get the weight in our hips and take our chin off our pivot foot. And we use another line. Our first line in the 5-line drill is to take a step back and put a line right behind our heel and our toe being on the back edge of the rubber. Our rocker step should never be on or past that line. If we are on or past that line, then more than likely our weight transfer is not going to be good. As you can see, Coach Schloss steps too far back, then he's going to be in trouble. Now, you may find that fault with a lot of young pitchers. So anyway, there we are. And now our balance point, we're taking the good balance point and we're taking the weight off the front foot. Weight off the front foot is key, and so we can pivot. Now, we can pivot and have our foot in front of and parallel as we said. Now, you look at the front knee. The front knee is not rigid. It's not rigid, locked in like that. It's slightly bent, so we can pivot on that front foot. And if it's rigid, we wouldn't be able to do that. We're ready now to move to the balance point. Okay, we're in this position. From here, we're going to have a leg lift. That term, I think, is very important because if we say leg swing or leg kick, we may have a tendency to swing our leg out and lose our balance point. So we're going to pick this leg up by the knee. At the same time, remember, we've taken the weight off this front foot. We want this front foot to pivot in front of and parallel with the rubber. We don't want to be pitching off the top of the rubber. We don't want to have our heel halfway on the rubber. To facilitate the balance point, we want to make sure that we're in front of and parallel with. Okay, now, at the same time, remember, it's a leg lift. The front knee is going to come around, and we're going to lift with the knee. Now, this is what we'd call proper mechanics. Ideally, you'd like to be able to find the heel underneath the knee, no tension in the toe area. I mean, we're not sticking it straight up. A little softness, but not bending. You're not sitting on this backside. Some people say drop and drive, and I've heard that term, and I know what it means, but sometimes it can be confused as really bending too far. We just want some softness here. We really want to stand tall now. From that standpoint, it's easy for me to keep my chin over my pivot foot, and I can bounce on this back leg. And if you do that with the pitchers, they can really find out their balance. If he kicks his leg out and tries to do that, it's impossible. So have your pitchers check that. Let me show you some of the problems I think you can encounter. Pitchers sometimes, especially young pitchers, and who are just starting to learn the craft, have a tendency to point this knee out. Now you can see as soon as that happens, we're going to fall off to the side there. It's going to be almost impossible to maintain any kind of balance. Some pitchers will not get the knee high enough. A lot of times when pitchers get tired and weary, that knee starts sinking. Again, you're not going to be able to get the stride, you're not going to be able to get the backside through, really not going to be able to get the hips involved. You'll also see some guys who have a tendency to kick out. They'll get right here and then they'll kick this leg out. Again, you can see how that throws us off balance. Some guys will have so much tension that they'll throw the toe up, instead of letting it be relaxed. Once they turn that toe up, it makes it tough for them to achieve a balance point. Having said that, you have to understand that there are some unique balance point positions that many pitchers have who are able to still maintain balance. So as coaches, I think we've got to be very careful that we don't change a pitcher's balance point just for the sake of change. Having said that, we are now able to separate the lower part of our body into two halves. Front side, back side. You can't make that decision until you get to this point because they're the opposite. But once you get to the balance point, now it's easy for us to call this the front side and the back side, or as we prefer, the control side, the power side. The front side is the control side, the back side is the power side. Now the control side is going to do exactly that. They're going to help, it's going to be the steering wheel of the delivery. It's going to allow you to be able to throw strikes if it's properly managed. The back side is going to give you the power by which you can throw with some velocity and without a great deal of effort. And most importantly, it's going to take the stress off the arm. Pitchers come in all shapes and sizes, whether they be tall and thin or short and squatty. But the universal thing you'll find in all pitchers at the highest level is they all have really developed back sides. Well, they're able to utilize that back side, and that's why they've been able to ascend to that high level of competition. Well, a pitcher who doesn't make use of his back side is a guy who's not going to be able to, again, perform at the highest level, and he's really taking the stress off his legs where they should be, or off the hips, and putting them on the arm. Those are guys that may break down sooner also. So we want to make sure, again, that when we separate this from the power side to the control side, that we understand that we're not generating velocity with the control side. What we're doing here is directing where we're going to throw the baseball. The back side is where we're going to get our power. Looking at this balance point, once again, this backside has a slight bend. It's not rigid, but we're not bending it so much that we all of a sudden are not coming tall off the mound. I mean, one of the reasons we have a mound, the most important reason we have a mound, so we can step down to the hitter. We don't want to drop underneath that. All right, now Coach Slosh is in that balance point, and again, with proper balance, he should be able to sit there for a while and even bounce up and down. How long should he be in that balance point? The analogy we use is a baseball throwing up in the air and coming down. Somewhere between going up and coming down, there's a slight pause. That's about the same type of pause we want to have in the balance point, just enough to gather ourselves and get directionally toward the plate. We use a term, we want to be able to go north and south toward the plate, not east and west. You hear that a lot, but what does that really mean? For us, it means this. Remember that first line we talked about? We want to be able to stride just on or inside that front line. To be able to do that from the balance point, we just tell our pitchers, we're going to let this front side fall forward. We're just going to let it fall, and we're going to lead with the outer half of the heel. We're not going to lead with the toe, and we're not going to jump the front side out. You know, you see a lot of young pitchers who want to throw a fastball by a guy. They get a count where they've got 2 strikes on a hitter and they want to throw one by him, and they have a tendency to rush the delivery, and it causes them to open up too soon, and they become pretty much a lunge pitcher. Just like a lunge hitter will get on the front side too soon, and he loses their hips and he drags his backside, and actually he does the exact opposite of what he's trying to accomplish. Instead of throwing the ball with more velocity and sinking it, he's going to throw the ball softer, and it's going to probably be up in the zone. So we got to make sure that when we are trying to teach this, that we continue to reinforce that this front side is not going to generate velocity. All we're going to do is just let it fall forward and lead with that heel. Now, when we do that, Coach Slosh has got to be very careful that the weight is still on the back foot here. If he gets too much weight on the front foot too soon, as you can see, he's not going to be able to pop this back heel, and we'll talk about that. So, again, we're just going to let it fall forward. We're just going to let it fall forward, leading with the outside of the heel. Looking at that front line, trying to stay on or inside that. Now, he's in what we call now the power position. The weight is still here. We're getting ready to pop this backside. Now, the term that we hear a lot is push off or drop and drive off the rubber, push off the rubber. I think they all mean the same thing, but we don't use that term because we don't want to confuse our pitchers. What we say is pivot and explode. So what we want our guys to do, again, the power side being the back side, is we want our pitchers to pivot, pop that heel, really pop the heel, boom, really pop it, and explode. If they do that, that means that back heel is going to come up and off the ground. Now you're going to see different heights and different degrees of that type of action. You know, some guys are going to be more violent with that than others. But bottom line is this: now where we've been taking the pressure of, or the stress of throwing the baseball, we've taken it off the arm, put it on the hips where it belongs, and we've been able to utilize our back side here and stay under control. Front side, control side, back side, power side. We go to our next line. Our next line in this 5-line drill is Coach Slosh is going to make one right there, and we'll make a line, one footprint from the front edge of the rubber, and make one footprint. Now, for him to check himself and make sure that he is not dragging the toe off and leaving his backside, we'll check to see if we've got a drag mark between here and here. If he is pushing and dragging, then you're going to start seeing some drag marks develop. And if that's the case, then the pitcher knows that he's not exploding that backside. And what's that tell him? It tells him, hey, maybe I'm not getting balanced. Let me go back and check. If I'm not getting balanced and I'm lunging out here, there's no way for me to pop that backside. I've got to drag it. You know, it's just another tool, another checkpoint. So the third line in our 5 lines is that one, between one footprint. Pitcher's got to do it himself from the front edge of the rubber in front. So there's our third of our 5 lines. Let's go back to the stride mark. I hear this all the time. How far should I stride down the mound? We use this test a lot. I tell pitchers constantly, look, when you're throwing your best, you need to check where your stride mark is and use that as a tool. But we have to understand also that as pitchers progress and they grow and mature, their stride marks are going to continue to differ. One of the things we use, again, this is the 4th of our 5 lines, is we will go heel to toe down the rubber for 5 and make a mark. And then one more for a 6th, and that's our 5th line to make a mark. Now, our stride mark, most often, if our mechanics are proper, are going to be somewhere along that 5th line. It may be just, and again, if you get past it, you're probably going to be lunging. Now, Coach Slosh's mark is going to be right there. His toe is going to be hitting right on that 5th line. That's natural for him. As we go back, one more time. As he gives you his natural mechanics, he's going to be right there, and you can see he's hitting that 5th line. Now, if he starts getting past that 5th line, over into the 6th line, he's probably lunging. It's a real easy tool. So we've given you 5 lines there to give you an idea of where we need to be lower body-wise. And just to review them, the first one, of course, is our rocker step line. We don't want to be stepping past that 1 footprint from the back edge of the rubber. And our rocker step wants to be there. Our second one is going to be from the mound straight down, from the heel, straight down, knowing that we're going to be on the right 1/3 side if we're a right-hander and left if we're a left-hander. Our third one is going to be from the rubber to 1 footprint again, and we don't want to have a drag mark between the rubber and there. If we do that, we know we're not popping our backside. Our 4th and 5th ones are going to be 5 steps down for our 4th one, draw a line. That's where we should be hitting about right there for our stride mark. And that last one, if we get past that 5th one and close to that 6th one, we know we're probably lunging. Again, our balance point's probably not what we want it to be, and there's something happening in the delivery that's causing us to lunge and creating a situation where our weight's not staying back long enough and we're really getting front-sided too quickly. When we hit our stride position for the power position, notice that the front knee is not rigid. You can see. Now, if we kick out and don't have a good balance point, that may wind up being the case. But if we're in proper mechanics as far as our lower half is concerned and our balance point, and we just let the front side fall, leading with the outside knee, we should hit right there, inside ball, moving toward our heel, inside ball of the foot moving toward our heel, but the knee will be slightly flexed. It will not be rigid. Now, it will not be broke down into a bent position. As you can see, that's obviously going to be something that wouldn't be conducive. But right there is pretty much where you're going to be able to see it. Now, I'm going to be able to, what we call, get my chest out over a bent front knee as I turn, and then get my chest out over it. But I wouldn't be able to do that if my knee is rigid and my chin has left my pivot foot because my mechanics are flawed in the balance point. So it's all tied together, as we can see. You know, a lot of times I hear coaches say, now make sure we wind up in the fielder's position. I don't disagree with that, but I think that we've got to be very careful that we don't stress that over and above making sure that we get our backside through and do a great job of getting our hips through in the delivery. There have been some outstanding power pitchers who don't necessarily finish squared up to the plate. Their backside is so violent, boom, that it pulls them off slightly. Now, that's not necessarily bad because you're really getting the hips through. It can be bad if you're pulled off because you open the front side up too soon. Now that's bad. The analogy I like to use is a boxer. A boxer is not going to throw a punch. If his opponent's standing directly in front of him, he's not going to throw a punch and step over here. He's going to step right toward him with that front toe closed. I mean, he's going to do that every time. Well, as pitchers, we've got to do the same thing. So if you're finishing over here if you're a right-hander or over here if you're a left-hander, because you're opening up your front side and leading with your toe open, well, that's wrong. But if you're finishing over there because your backside really explodes, so that's not bad. Be a fielder where you wind up. Number one job is to pitch. So I think we have to understand the difference there. And coaches, pay attention to this lead leg and to the foot and see if it's leading right there. This is not going to turn until this is turning. When this pops, that will turn, as you can see, but not until. If it opens up too soon, we got problems because the shoulders will open up. But if it doesn't, we're in good shape, okay? So that's what we want to do. Lead, just let it fall, closed, leave that heel, pop the backside, down and through. Basis for lower body mechanics. Again, the balance point is a key. Getting that point, slight pause, throwing the ball in the air. From this standpoint, from right here, we can put ourselves in a position to have an outstanding delivery. Okay, we're ready to move to upper body mechanics. As you can see, Coach Slosh is on the mound getting his signal. He's in that stance that we talked about earlier as far as the lower body is concerned. But now we're looking at the upper body. You can see the glove is turned toward the chest so that the third base coach can't pick up the baseball when we put our hand in the glove. He's not bent over. He's standing erect. Now, you know, I really believe if you bend over between every pitch, you're certainly using energy that you could utilize later in the game. So we want to be in this position right here, similar to the pitcher who throws a pitch and then walks down the mound to retrieve the ball from the catcher, which would take a lot more energy than we would want to utilize for absolutely no reason. We want to make sure we stay on the mound. We don't want to bend over. Okay, now we're ready to move to either the pump or the non-pump delivery. Before we do that, I think I need to address both of those and why we would use one or the other. You know, the non-pump delivery has become much more popular in baseball, and I think the reason being is it's an efficient delivery that doesn't have a lot of movement. And the more movement you have in the delivery, obviously there's more things that could go wrong with that delivery. So we've really streamlined the delivery by going with a no-pump delivery. There are pitchers, obviously, who still use a pump, and if they do that, then we need to make sure that we can get our hands from the top of our head or the back of our head to the break point the same way each and every time. First of all, we'll talk about the pump delivery. We tie this together with our rocker step. As the foot steps back in our rocker step, the hands move up, as you can see. Now, Coach Losh is taking his hands up to the top of his head. Now, very seldom you're going to see a pitcher who will pull his hands all the way back to the back of the neck, but Nolan Ryan, of course, does that. Now, if he does take the hands all the way back to the neck, he can't lean back like Coach Losh is doing there. He's got to really keep his chin, again, over the pivot foot and stay in this position right there. It's not an easy move to make, but some pitchers certainly are capable of doing that, and if they are, I wouldn't advise changing it. But most use the pump delivery, again, stop at somewhere at the top of over the bill of the cap to the top of to the button of the cap. The non-pump delivery is one in which we keep the hands in the midline of the body, somewhere near the letters. Again, not too close to the body, but in the position that you can see Coach Losh with right there, being very careful that we don't turn the glove toward the third base coaching box and tip our pitches. All right, again, whether it's pump or no pump, I think the key to this is being able to get our hands to the break point on a consistent basis each and every time. All right, as we are able to bring our foot around and pivot, our hands then are going to move to the separation point. Now, looking at where Coach Losh is right now, I think we need to understand that as in the lower body, this is the most critical area, the balance point. Same applies to the upper body. You know, the analogy we use when we go back to boxing is this. We're not going to have our hands in the balance point out too far away from our body or in too close to our body, too low or too high. The analogy we'd want to use is the boxer's stance. If I lined up pitchers of all ages, from ages 8 to whatever, and said, okay guys, get in a boxer's stance, I can assure you that most of them are going to stand somewhere around here with their hands. They're going to be in this position. You're not going to see them stand with their hands out or in, because this is natural for them. Well, we use the analogy of the boxer's stance in the teaching tool we have, especially for the younger levels. Put your hands in this position. Now just put your hands together. Now that's natural. That's easy for us right there to be in a good position, a good balance. So that's where we'd like to have our hands at break point, where we separate them. Now you can see we don't have the glove cupped over. We're really clapping our hands. If we took our glove off the ball of our hand, we're in a position right here where we can just clap our hands. My elbows are down and freed up away from my body. My hands are 4 to 6 inches off my chest. I'm not out here, which is going to throw me off balance. I'm not too high, and I'm not too low. You're going to see pitchers are going to break down around the belt buckle. You're going to see some that will break a little higher, but the majority of conventional pitchers are going to break somewhere between the belt buckle and the letters, closer to the letters. Again, being able to clap our hands right there in a nice, relaxed, natural position. Okay, we're ready to go to the break point. Again, if you remember, we talked about the boxer's position, putting our hands together. You can see where my hands are. My elbows are down. My gloves 4 to 6 inches off my chest, and I'm ready to clap my hands here. The term that we use a lot in our program is thumb to thigh, which means when we separate our hands here and talk about the throwing hand first, we want to take the thumb down toward the thigh. I think it's a great term, and I'm sure you've probably heard that before. A lot of coaches will talk about breaking with the thumbs down, and I think that's a real good teaching point, because if you break with the thumbs up, obviously you're going to take the ball out at an angle that wouldn't be conducive to throwing. We want to separate the throwing arm now from the lead arm and talk just about the throwing arm. Isolate the throwing arm, and we want to talk about the thumb to thigh rotation. What we're going to do is take the ball down, it comes close to the thigh, and as we get to the full extension of our arm arc, our fingers are going to be on top of the ball, as you can see. If we take the ball back here and chop it off and have a tendency to turn it sideways or get our hand underneath the ball, we're never going to be able to get the good loose arm action. We're not going to throw with the kind of velocity that we'd like to be able to throw with, and it's going to be real tough for us to do it and repeat it over and over again. So we're just very simple. We're going to take thumb to thigh, fingers on top of the ball. From here, we're going to go up, and we want to think about our elbow higher than our shoulder. If we get here okay, then we're going to be okay up here. Extension is a lot more important here than it is back here, I can tell you. But most guys, if they don't get extended back here, are not going to be able to get extended up here. So we want to think real strongly about thumb to thigh, and in the other part of that term that I'm sure you've heard that we use a lot, show it to the sky. I think it's a real descriptive term because it tells our guys get here to there, and our elbow is higher than our shoulder. Now, why would our elbow drop below our shoulder? Well, it's a problem that develops because of poor mechanics. Having said that, we need to now talk about the lead arm and put the two together. You hear coaches talk about the lead arm action being short, long, short. Well, I think that's a good term. What we want to look at is this. As I break my hands, my lead arm, as I go thumb to thigh, my lead arm is going to come out, and I'm going to be in a position where if I had my glove off, you could see my thumb turned slightly up at about a 45, not quite, elbow here, and my elbow's up in line with my shoulder, not here. I've got to make sure I do a good job with this lead arm that it doesn't pull my front side off. So I'm going to be in this position, as you can see, right there, thumb to thigh, and so it's nice and rhythmic here. All right, that's my lead arm action. Now, as I come through and throw the baseball, as I get here to the height of my delivery, this lead arm has got to clear itself, but yet not pull my front shoulder off. And this is the most important part of the lead arm action. Unlike the lower half, where in the lower half it's very definable between the back side and the front side, power side, control side, the upper half, this front side can help you generate some velocity if done properly. Again, we go back to the analogy of a boxer. If a boxer's throwing a punch and me being left-handed, boom, if he pulls his front side back, it's going to help him deliver the blow with a little bit more force. He's going to be able to have a little bit more force. So we want to make sure that we do the same thing in pitching. And so what our lead arm action is going to be is, here I am right there, shoulders up, and again, I never rotate my shoulders up and down. They only rotate squarely. Remember that. I never rotate my shoulders up and down. So I don't want to be in this position and see if my lower half is out of whack, it's going to turn my shoulder up for me to compensate and try to stay balanced. So here I am, balance point. I get to this point, break my hands, thumb to thigh, right there. Now, again, whether it's called goal post or what have you, you see where my lead arm action is. It's not down. And a lot of young pitchers will have a tendency just to flop this lead arm. And when they do that, they pull that front side open. Again, I'm trying to throw a punch at a guy. By popping open my front side, I can't deliver the blow. So I want to be right here every time. Now, here's the step progression. As I get to this point and pull my throwing arm through, this lead arm, elbow right here is going to pop. And we use the term pop the belt loop. We want to pop this belt loop or come right down below this and pop the side of this belt loop with some velocity. We want to give it a pop right through there. What that's done is this. When I come through, what that's done is boom, popping that belt loop. I've popped that arm through. I've gotten some arm speed going, which is going to speed this up. If this slows down, this slows down. This is going to speed this up, give me a little bit more arm speed in my throwing arm, and it's cleared it, but it hasn't pulled this front shoulder off. So what you hear the term short, long, short, which means short right here, and then as we break our hands, that's long. It's not stretched out there, but that's long. And then as we release, boom. As we release, boom, we're going to pop this shoulder, pop this elbow, bang, right past this belt loop. And that's going to be able to allow us to build some arm speed as we get down and through. Now, so that's our lead arm action is here, boom, right there. That thumb then, as you see, is going to go from here to there. That thumb's going to go from right there to right there, right there to right there. Every time, popping that elbow right past our belt loop or pop that belt loop. It's not to be here or out there, but right past it. What we want to see then is as that arm comes down and through, we pop this elbow, then this arm, and you see right here where we are, we have turned our hips, turned that belt buckle right to the plate. We're going to pop this arm, is going to come down and cross this stride knee. And it's going to happen as we pop and explode this backside, as you can see. Now all the stress has gone off the arm and put it on the hips. And if we repeat that over and over again for 100 to 120 pitches in a ball game, it's not going to be nearly as stressful if we're not getting across that stride knee. Again, we go back to balance. So from that point right there, you can see my lead arm. Thumb is right here. That thumb is going to go here to there. Arm up. And this is going to cross that knee as that backside extends. Boom. Okay. Now if you notice, when we got in that power position, our shoulders were not, our shoulder was not up. It was rotating squarely. When I say shoulder, I'm talking about higher than this. But our elbows are here from that standpoint. Now, but my chin's still right in the middle of my body. See where I am balanced right here? It's just come off the pivot foot because I'm starting to deliver to the plate, but it's not out in front here. As you can see, it's right there. Now what we're saying is we want our chin over the pivot foot. You've heard me say that many times. Now we want to take that chin from the pivot foot straight to the mitt. I want chin to the mitt right there. And as we snap and finish, the backside came through. And you see he finished very close to the fielder's position. Obviously he doesn't have a ball in his hand, but it's not going to deviate much when he would. Okay, let's take a moment to review our mechanics in putting the lower body and the upper body together. First of all, we're on the pitcher's rubber. Again, right-handers are on the right 1/3 side and left-handers on the left 1/3. Now, I need to make this point. If you have a pitcher who has great arm side movement, or maybe he's a side arm or a submariner, not a conventional pitcher, you certainly need to make the adjustment with him to make sure that he doesn't throw the ball into the hitter constantly. So he would want to shift across the rubber. But again, here's where most of our conventional pitchers would be. And we're ready for the rocker step. As you can see, again, we're not bent over. We've got some balance. We're just a little bit narrower than shoulder width here, but that's a personal preference, just making sure that we do have good balance and we're able to facilitate the rocker step at this point in time. Chin's over the pivot foot, and we're ready to step back. Again, here we go to our first line. The line behind us here, 1 footprint. We don't want to cross that line. We've taken the weight off our front foot, put it on the back foot, and from here we're ready for our pivot with our front foot parallel to and in front of the rubber, not on top of the rubber. Again, we're ready now to bring our leg around to the balance point. Having done that in a no pump delivery. It is not a leg swing or a leg kick. It is a leg lift. We pick it up by the knee, not by the hip. Our hands, as you can see, the boxer stance, but we put them together. Elbows down to 45, shoulders are square, not up in the air. Remember, we rotate squarely. And we're in a position here we could, with our heel underneath our knee, we can bounce all day long on this and be comfortable and relaxed. From this standpoint, we're ready to make our delivery to the plate. We're in the balance point. What we're going to do is we're going to lead with the outside part of the heel. Just let that front side fall forward. Don't lunge, don't kick out, and don't force that effort. Again, we get to the power position from that. We lead with the outside of the heel. We go to our second line. Second line says we should not be over or above that line. We should be on or just inside the line that we created from our heel straight down the mound in our balance point. Okay, from here, as you can see, thumb is down here, elbows, shoulders in line. We have already had an arm arc, and we'll go back and show you the arm arc quickly. As we get to our arm arc, the throwing hand, we're going to go thumb to thigh, get extension, show it to the sky, as you've heard that term used. And from here, our lead arm action is right there. Okay, our chin now has left the pivot foot, but it is still down and in the midline of our body as we take our chin to the mitt. All right, now at this position, as we get ready to throw, we're going to think lead arm action. We're going to pop that belt loop hard with the elbow and create some velocity by having a great lead arm action, by having a great lead arm action. Our arm comes around, you can see our belt buckles turn. We're still in position here. Our weight has not transferred to the front side completely yet. We're going to not drive off the mound, but we're going to pop that heel and explode off the mound. The term we use, drive may be one that you use, but the same thing applies, is that you're going to make sure that you pop the heel and explode the back side as we pop that belt loop hard with our front side. Again, our chin now will go straight to the mitt from the power position, and we'll extend our lead arm action, we'll extend, and our throwing hand will cross that stride knee. We'll cross that stride knee, and no recoil involved there. Chin right straight to the mitt. The basis for a sound delivery. When you're talking mechanics and pitching, the terminology can be mind-boggling sometimes. The bottom line is this. The absolutes we've covered in this tape are the basis for what sound mechanics are all about. Hopefully you can take this and improve your game or someone else's. Thanks and good luck.
All drills and exercises in this videotape are designed to develop fundamental skills. It is extremely important as an athlete or coach that you execute them with proper technique in order to avoid possible injury. To reduce the risk of possible injury, consult your doctor before beginning this exercise or skill development program. The producers, participants, and distributors of this program disclaim any liabilities or loss in connection with the information presented in this tape.